Hi, welcome everybody. Hi, Sara.
Nanette.
Thank you for joining us tonight for our fourth installment of our adult book talks. And tonight we are going to talk about some wonderful fiction that Sara has dug up. That's pretty recent fiction. One's available electronically and one's a print book. And so we're excited to talk to you about that. We also wanted to let you know that Curbside is going really, really well. It's so great to see all of you. I think I speak for every librarian when I say we all missed you so much. It's been great to see you, even if it is parking lots. So we hope you'll continue to return those books and pick up your hold. And if you have any questions about that, you can call. But it's really easy. Just pull right up, call the number, and we'll be out with your books shortly. And we look forward to seeing more of you this week. So Sara, what you going to talk about tonight?
Well, I have two books to talk about. The first one is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This is one that is available electronically. It is a courtroom thriller mystery with quite a lot more going on. It dips into several issues. It begins with a family. Pak is the father. His wife is named Young, and their teenage daughter is Mary. They've recently immigrated from Korea to a small rural town in Virginia named Miracle Creek, hence the title. And in the old barn on this property, they set up a business with an alternative medical treatment, a hyperbaric oxygen chamber that started to improve all sorts of medical conditions by letting people just breathe in extra pressurized oxygen for an hour at a time. So he takes in groups of people at a time, a lot of children with various conditions, but a few adults as well. And as the story begins, Pak has left his wife Young in charge of the machine so he can go and deal with some protesters who are protesting near the property because they're opposed to this kind of treatment. It's not legal for him to leave his wife in charge of this. So he's, kind of running very quickly, telling her, quick, shut off the oxygen when it reaches a certain point, and if I don't come back before then. But she gets distracted by something and doesn't get the oxygen turned off in time. And so within minutes, there's an explosion that kills two of the people inside the chamber. One is a child that's being treated for autism and the mother of another child, and also injures a grown man who's in there being treated for infertility. The daughter, Mary, has been seen by someone running toward the barn as it explodes, and she is injured too. So pretty tragic situation. 1 year later, the rest of the story begins, and the whole rest of the story takes place pretty much as a courtroom scene. It takes 4 days, and the person being prosecuted is Elizabeth. She's the mother of the child with autism who was killed, and she's being prosecuted for setting the fire that caused the murder and all these other deaths and injuries. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence against her, and as the trial progresses, it's she's kind of being painted as a real villain. It also becomes obvious she has been under quite a lot of pressure as a single mother of a special needs child. But as the story goes on, other witnesses come forward, and it's obvious they're not telling the whole story about what they know. They're hiding things. There's a lot of lies being told. And Elizabeth begins to look less and less guilty until you get to the end. And the whole thing comes together as it does in a courtroom story, and you find out who did it. What I liked about this was that even though it was a mystery thriller, it had quite a lot of other issues going on. It touched on immigration, on parenting, marriage, autism, and also alternative medical treatment. So just a lot of touch points for people to connect with, and also a really good story. So that was Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. It's available as a print book, but also on our online platforms. I believe I saw it on Hoopla as well as Overdrive. So,
nice.
Yeah. So my first book. The second book is a brand new title that just came out. It was one of the holds that was waiting for me when we came back to the branch. I was really excited to see it. Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Giles. And I picked this one up because I loved her previous book, News of the World. And that one I talked about on this platform just a couple months ago. If you've read that one, it's kind of a companion book. A minor character from that book becomes a main character of this one, and then the main character of that one is just briefly cameoed in this one too, so kind of tied together. And it took me a little bit longer to read this than I expected because I kept stopping to look up YouTubes of all the Irish melodies and other traditional tunes that kept being mentioned. So it's another story that combines a lot of elements. It's a story of a journey. a Western and also a romance, all kind of tied together. So again, it takes place in Texas toward the end of the Civil War, when Texas is a pretty chaotic place, martial law, anarchy, just, not a place that it's real easy to live. Simon Bodlin is 23 years old. He has ambitions. He would like to find a wife, and he would like to purchase land. And he's somehow managed the entire wartime to avoid being drafted by the Confederate Army, just because he looks so young. He looks like he's 15 years old, but also because he's a talented fiddler. And the story actually begins with a scene where he's playing his fiddle at a plantation party. A team of Confederate soldiers are working as conscriptors, trying to look for people who've managed to avoid the army. They come to the plantation where he's providing the music. The planter refuses to let his wife's party be ruined this way and says the war is almost over and they're losing, they need fiddlers more than they need soldiers, and hides Simon in the ice house where he nearly freezes to death before it's safe to come out. So obviously a fiddler, any musicians at that time were, highly valued because there was no other way to hear music. So Simon kind of gets along this way till almost the end of the war, March 1865, just a month before the surrender at Appomattox. And he's placed in the regimental band and ends up way down at the southern tip of Texas, where there's another battle, actually after the war has ended, one more battle, where he's captured or taken into Union hands and kind of conscripted into one of their bands. So this band is drafted fairly soon after to play at a military dinner that's hosted by Colonel Webb. And that dinner is where Simon's heart is completely captured at the sight of a beautiful young woman. He has just enough time to kind of connive one interaction with her and find out a little bit more about her. Her name is Doris Dillon. She's an Irish indentured servant who's been serving as a governess for Colonel Webb's young daughter, and kind of subtly finds out she's not being very well treated. This is not a happy family, and she has several years left to go on her indenture, and she's absolutely not allowed to entertain any suitors of any kind. So the next day, Simon goes on his way, seeking his fortune as a traveling musician. Doris goes on her way with the Webb family. They're headed for San Antonio. Simon does manage to find this out. And the rest of the book is just the story of him and his musician friends traveling through Texas, stopping at various places, but also his determination to become a landowner, find Doris back and marry her. And he does manage to find a way to communicate with her before that gets cut off. Just a really good story. A lot of good characters. I love the allusions to the Irish music. Like I said, I kept wanting to look it all up, and I think just because I'd read the other story first, which takes place later, and he's featured in the book, I knew it would end well for him because he'd made it through and made it into this other book. So it's always kind of a good thing. So Simon the Fiddler by Paulette Giles, not yet available electronically, at least in our collection, but we have several copies available as print, and you can put it on hold through our catalog.
Did you like the ending, Sara?
I did, yeah. It was, a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end, but
would you say it was a feel good story?
Yeah, I mean it left me feeling good. It was, there were some rough parts in it. She's not, like I said, it was Texas was a fairly rough place, but it was a good story.
But it has some Western, it would appeal to some Western readers as well?
Yeah, I think it would. Western romance and just that kind of that journey story. It's one of those stories that has a map at the front with a little dotted line to show where they've traveled. So if you've been to Texas or live in Texas, you'd really, really enjoy that connection.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Do you think it would appeal to people?
I'm sorry, you just froze on me.
I'm sorry, you cut out, Sara.
Yeah, so did you. Can you say that again? It would appeal to
people who like historical fiction.
Yeah, I mean, I love historical fiction, and it, what I like is a really good, well-researched one. And there was I always learn something from historical fiction. So in this one, I learned that there was a battle.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was really good.
I'm excited to read both of those.
Yeah,
and I think is that one available electronically?
No, that was just print. That one just came out. So
okay.
At least I didn't find it in our collection yet, but hope we may get a copy soon.
All right. And that was with the Paulette Giles?
Yeah, Giles.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm so glad to learn about those books. They both sound really interesting. I know there's a lot of historic fiction fans out there, so sounds like it has a lot of broad appeal, both of them.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us tonight. We do want to tell you about our Summer Wonder Wednesdays that continues again this week. And this week the topic is going to be art. And the KDL librarians are going to talk to you about something wonderful. And this week's feature is local art. So we do hope you'll join us tomorrow from 6:30 to 7:30 on our Facebook page or YouTube for our Summer Wonder Wednesdays. And thank you for joining us tonight. Great job, Sarah. I always love to hear what people are reading. So thank you for sharing.
Yes, and we're what Nanette said earlier about curbside pickup. We're loving seeing all our familiar faces back. So please put items on hold and then come and get them so we can say hello. Right.